Dear learners and listeners, welcome to this session. I am Dr. G. Uma, working as an assistant professor in the School of Gender and Development Studies, Indira Gandhi National Open University, New Delhi. Today we are going to see the concepts related to the gender and development approach. Welcome to this session. I am happy to explain the various concepts related to gender and development approach. I have already explained the gender and development approach in my previous lecture. Hope you have gone through the gender and development approach. Today also I will talk about a little bit about the gender and development approach, women in development approach. Along with that, there are various concepts related to the gender and development approach. Let us see the concepts one by one. Actually, I have prepared this lecture based on these learning outcomes. After listening this lecture, you would be able to know the various concepts related to gender and development approach or theory, explain the differences among related basic concepts. These are the two things. After listening this lecture carefully, certainly all of you could able to explain or even able to understand the various concepts related to gender and development approach. These concepts not only related to gender and development approach, this concepts is related to women's studies, women's and gender studies, and if you are pursuing or if you are interested in development studies also, you must be reading the concepts what I am teaching today. So learners and listeners from social science background, development studies background, women's studies background, gender and development studies background, and every learners who are interested in public policy. So all of these concepts will be useful for all of you. Let us start this learning the concepts one by one. First, I will explain what is power. You all must be hearing that word power. Usually we used to say that someone is powerful, this and this particular individual is powerful. We casually use the term power or powerful in our day to day conversation. In academically, we must know what do you mean the term power. Power can be defined as the degree of control exercised by certain people or institutions or organizations over material, human, intellectual and financial resources. So the control of these resources becomes the sources of power. Like if someone is controlled somebody's financial resource, whoever controlled that gave them the sources of power. It is dynamic in nature, it keeps changing. It is a dynamic and relational and exercised in the social, economic and political relation between individuals and groups. Next, hope you understood the concept power. The second concept I would like to explain to you all is the subordination. Like a power, all of you must be listening the word subordination. According to Webster dictionary, subordination means one who stands in order or rank below the other. Like if one stands in order, if one stands below the another person, that is the distinguished from a principal. And subordination means inferior in order, nature, dignity, power, importance, or like this only. And subordination also means to place in a lower order or class, to make or considered as of less value or importance, as to subordinate one creature to other, to make subject, to subject or subdue, as to subordinate the passions to reason. And subordination means also placed in a lower order, class or rank, holding a lower or inferior position. See, why are we learning subordination? When we talk about the power, automatically women were controlled by male member in the society. Basically patriarchy operates in a way that they try to control the women and they make the women act and do certain activities according to the whims and fancies of the male members in the society. Like a power, subordination also, women's subordinations refers to, like for example, if the women are treated as lower than the male members in the society, immediately the society give justification that this is because of social norms, culture and customs, that is. So, women's subordination refers to social norms, culture and customs which maintain men as a primary, superior and paramount, and women are secondary and subordinate to men. This excludes and restricts women entering into public domain, and it restricts the women to taking decisions on their own, occupying a position and so on. Women's Conference in Beijing has said that there is no nation under heaven where women are not subordinated. Thus, women's subordination is a global phenomena which is considered as the result of the manifestation of the patriarchy. Discrimination. For example, like a subordination, like a power, the term discrimination refers to differential treatment taken against a person or a group because they belong to certain class, caste, gender, which is considered as lower in the society. Discrimination is the differential behavior towards another group. It involves excluding or restricting members of one group from accessing opportunities that are available to another groups. Discriminatory behavior takes many forms and involves in social, political and economic exclusion. These disadvantages lead to different kinds of discrimination and injustice. Next one is the important concept we need to know about when we talk about the gender issues or women's issues is the entitlement. Entitlement means the appropriate rights and claims. It is the right guaranteed by the law or statute and provides certain benefits to the deprived and underprivileged group. In the context of gender, women do not have access and control over tangible and intangible resources. Like in the yesterday's lecture, I was mentioning about the controlling the land resources by the female members in the society. If you take the data among women members in the society, the women members owns less than 10% of the land resources when we compare to the male members in the society. So, in the context of gender, women they do not have an access and control over tangible and intangible resources. Even some of the women, even if they have an access, for example, some women they can have an access to common property resources, like they can access to water resources, or they can access to places, common places in the village or in the city. Even in a city, when you talk about in the context of the cities and towns, there is a park. Like women can have an access to the park, but even if they regularly use the park for going for a walk, for relaxing, or sitting in a park and doing certain kinds of work, but they cannot control over that park. Control in the sense, if you look at the data on violence against gender based violence, women, the percentage of the women facing the violence in the country is increasing day by day. So, even if they have an access to common places, but it is very difficult to control over those resources. So, in the context of gender, women they do not have an access and control over both tangible and intangible resources, and their equal rights with the men are deprived because of patriarchal norms. Patriarchal norms regularly dictates that the women they are supposed to behave, act in a certain way, and whatever the society dictates, the women expects to behave in a certain way. So, the patriarchal norms makes the women to behave in a certain way, and the patriarchal norms never allows the women to have an access and control over both tangible and intangible resources. So, entitlement means the appropriate rights and claims. It is the right guaranteed by the law, statute and provides certain benefits to the deprived and underprivileged group. So, the low status of women is thus an effect of the entitlement failure. Family and other social institutions confines the capacity of women, restricts their independent activity and making them to consider the needs of the others above their own. Therefore, to seek gender justice, entitlement is the primary requirement. Let us see what is needs and rights. Needs from 1970 onwards, basically needs, we need to understand the needs and rights. Once you understand the needs and rights, then it is easy for us to understand the certain concepts like gender planning, gender mainstreaming, gender budgeting, gender auditing. Needs also we can talk about the what is practical gender needs, what is strategic gender needs. For example, the human being, either they born as a male or female or over a period of time maybe other genders also. Okay. Now we are talking about the patriarchal norms. The patriarchal norms dictates the each gender in the society in a certain way. So, the women, due to the existing patriarchal norms, the women expect to do certain activities and male members also, the society expects male members to certain activities. So, based on their activities, their roles, their rights in the society, their needs also differs. So, needs from 1970 onwards, low status and condition of women was brought into focus. So, to improve their status and conditions, first we need to identify their needs. Based on their needs, we need to integrate their needs in the planning process. Once we address their needs through the planning process, it may improve their status and position. So, here identifying the needs are very important. Needs may differ between male, female and other genders due to the role, due to the society's expectations to perform certain roles. Through the gender planning, we have to identify the needs of the every genders in the society. So, gender planning concerns the fact that women and men not only play different roles in the society, but also their strategic and practical needs are different, because they know they play a different role. When they play a different role, automatically their needs are differs. Needs of the female members in the society, the Caroline Moser and the Maxine Molinox, they have divided the needs into two types, strategic and practical needs. I will explain both strategic and practical needs later. When identifying interest, it is useful to differentiate between women's interest, that is the strategic gender interest, and practical gender interest, following the threefold conceptualization made by the Maxine Molinox. So, now let us see what is practical and strategic gender needs. After identifying the needs of the female members in the society, Caroline Moser and Maxine Molinox, they have divided the needs of the women further into practical and strategic gender needs. You must be wondering, okay, we have identified the needs, we can incorporate those needs into planning process carried out by the government and other agencies. So, women's needs can be addressed through the planning process. Once the women's needs are addressed and fulfilled by the agencies like government, automatically it will improve the women's status. That is the process. But you must be wondering, why do we need to further divide the needs into practical and strategic gender needs? They have identified, they have divided the needs into practical and strategic gender needs because these can be translated into planning needs and their concerns may be stratified. For example, practical gender needs. It is talking about only day to day survival, getting drinking water, fuel, fodder and constructing the toilets near for each household. These are the very practical day to day needs, survival needs. Like if you look at the movies done during 1980s and 90s, the women from certain areas in the country, they used to walk for 10-15 kilometers just to fetch the water. After realizing the hardships of the women to get the drinking water, the government started implementing the various policies and programs to provide the drinking water in each and every hamlet, and through panchayats they are trying to provide the drinking water. Even individual households also, they can now with the help of the gram panchayat or municipalities, they can get a connection for drinking water inside their home itself. Otherwise, municipalities and panchayats, they are providing the drinking water for each and every hamlet. So, practical needs basically talks about the day to day survival, fuel. Due to the patriarchal norms, the society expects the women to ensure the food security of the entire family members in the society. When the society expects the women to do cooking and other activities related to the productive productive activities, like not only bearing the children, rearing the children and taking care of the elders and cooking for the entire family members. So, if the society expect the women to perform all the productive activities, it is the responsibility of the society to provide or to ensure the women's needs. But due to the patriarchal norm, society expects the women to do all these kinds of activities without addressing the needs of the women. So, the women, they used to walk so many kilometers to collect the fuel and the fodder for the milch animals, and they walk so many kilometers to fetch the drinking water. So, basically the practical gender needs are the needs for the day to day survival. According to the experts of gender and development, not only that, Marxist feminist and socialist feminist, first we need to address the practical gender needs. Once we address the practical gender needs, automatically we can able to address the strategic gender needs. When we talk about the strategic gender needs basically it identify the women's subordinate position in relation to men in the society. After identifying the women's subordinate position, they try to alter the existing gender relations to make the both the genders and all the genders equal in the society. So, strategic gender needs basically it is about the division of labor, power and control, and may include issues like legal rights, domestic violence, equal wages, women's control over their bodies and access and control over the resources. So, when you talk about the strategic gender needs, it will alter the existing gender relations. So, according to the experts and feminists, first we need to address the practical gender needs of the women. Once we could able to fulfill the practical gender needs of the women, then it is easy to fulfill the strategic gender needs. So, meeting the strategic gender needs helps women to achieve greater equality. It also changes the existing roles and therefore challenges women's subordinate position in the society. Again further I will talk about the practical gender needs. Practical gender needs are the needs that women identify in their socially accepted roles in the society. So, practical gender needs do not challenge the gender division of labor, what I am talking about through the strategic gender needs. PGN do not challenge the gender division of labor or women's subordinate position in the society, although it raises the women's subordinate position. PGN are the response to immediate perceived necessity identified within a specific context. For example, in some areas the women need water, fuel, some area the women only need the fuel, some area the women expect the government and other agencies to electrify the entire village, and some area they need only toilet facilities close to their home. So, if they do not have a toilet facilities, the women also the early morning or after the dawn they walk enough so many kilometers to just to for the nature calling. So, if they walk or if they identify the very isolated place, there is a so many threat also. One is the gender based violence, second one they if they go for deep into the very specific places for nature calling, sometimes the animals or insects they may bite by the insects. So, it is directly threat to the life of the women. So, it is a practical gender needs are the needs for day to day survival. These needs differ from place to place, country to country. So, in some countries they need a local transportation to go to the work, because they may most of the women, I have in one lecture I explained about how the women they in some places they need a public transportation for going to their work. So, these needs, practical gender needs differ from place to place, but with regard to strategic gender needs, strategic gender needs basically it alters the existing gender relations. When it alters the existing gender relations, certainly it is difficult for the women. It is altered gender relations mean there will so much of once it alters the existing gender relations or power relations, it treats everyone equal in the society. So, before we address the strategic gender relations, the feminist feels that first we need to address the practical gender needs, then it is easy for us to address the strategic gender needs. Next important concept or term we must understand is the rights. The term women's rights refer to freedoms and entitlements of women and girls of all ages. These rights may or may not be institutionalized, ignored or suppressed by law, local custom and behavior in a particular society. These liberties are grouped together and differentiated from broader notions of human rights because they often differ from the freedoms inherently. The another important concept is width. I have already explained about the width and gad in my previous lecture. Still I would like to talk about these concepts as part of this lecture. WID approach aims to integrate women into existing development process by targeting them or often in women specific activities. Women are usually passive recipients in WID projects, which often emphasize making women more efficient producers and increasing their income. Although many WID projects have improved health, income and resources in a short term, because they did not transform unequal relationship, a significant number were not sustainable. So, WID approach basically thinks that women have enough time and space. By involving themselves in economic activities, their income will improve. After improving their income, automatically their status and positions will improve. But WID approach was failed because even though in certain areas the WID project improved their health and income and resources in a short term, but it didn't alter the existing gender relations. A common shortcoming of WID project is that they do not consider women's multiple roles and they miscalculate the elasticity of women's time and labor. And another is that such projects tend to be blind to men's role and responsibilities in women's disempowerment. The biggest difference between WID and GAD is that which projects traditionally were not grounded in a comprehensive gender analysis. GAD approach is gender analysis driven. There is definitely a need for women specific and men specific interventions at times. These complement gender initiatives. Research shows that the success of both sex specific and gender activities is directly linked with the depth of the gender analysis that informs them. Gender mainstreaming. Gender mainstreaming is the public policy concept of assessing the different implications for men and women of any planned policy action, including legislation and programs in all areas and all levels. The concept of gender mainstreaming was first proposed at the 1985 Third World Conference of Women in Nairobi. The idea has been developed in the United Nations Development Community. The idea was formally featured in 1995 at the Fourth World Conference on Women in Beijing. Here I would like to give the definitions of gender mainstreaming. Gender mainstreaming is nothing but to mainstream women's activities at all levels in all areas. For example, if you take any institutions, even schools, colleges, if you are studying in a colleges or if you are working in a certain places, in the every places you mainstream the gender issues. Like if you are studying in a school, whether they are treating male children and female children equally. Do they have facilities for both male and female children separately? So, you have to mainstream gender issues in every level and every organizations, and if you take any issues, it should be seen from the gender perspective. So, according to UN Economic and Social Council's definition, quote, mainstreaming a gender perspective is the process of assessing the implications of women and men of any planned action, including legislation, policies or programs in all areas and at all levels. It is a strategy for making women's as well as men's concerns and experiences an integral dimension of the design, implementation, monitoring and evaluation of policies and programs in all political, economic and social spheres, so that women and men benefit equally and inequality is not perpetuated. The ultimate goal is to achieve gender equality, unquote. Literacy Gender Parity Index. Literacy Gender Parity Index is the ratio of the female to male adult literacy rates, which measures progress towards gender equity in literacy and the level of learning opportunities available for women in relation to those available to men. It serves also as a significant indicator of the empowerment of women in this society. Thank you so much for listening patiently. We will meet again with some other topic in some other sessions. Thank you so much.